Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cobbs Corner. I am your host, Morgan Cobbs. Cobbs Corner, aka Cobra Kai, because Cobra Kai never dies, and Cobbs Corner, we are eternal. We are not going anywhere. We are here to stay. Cobra Kai never dies, although Cobra Kai will be going into its last season soon. So, yeah, there's that. We're live right now. We are on Twitch right now. So, for those of you watching us live on Twitch, feel free to put your questions, comments, concerns, conundrums, answers in the chat. Yeah, feel free to drop a line in the chat. As we're live on Current Nerd News, or CNN, the most trusted name in TV, film, and pop culture. TV, film, pop culture. That's the kind of going to be the tagline of Cobb's Corner going forward. Logo, work in progress. So let's get right into it. It is Thursday, March 23rd, 2023. What a week. What a week. Starting off with Wu-Tang and American Saga. Wu-Tang and American Saga, their 8th episode dropped yesterday. And the episode was a dramatization of the creation of the album Liquid Swords. Now, Liquid Swords was, if I'm not mistaken, the very first solo album of Genius, or the GZA, of the Wu-Tang Clan. And at this point in the saga, and creative liberties are taken, and this is a dramatization of actual events. At this point, Wu-Tang Clan has been established as a group, and they've got at least one album out. They've got record deals, but now each and every member, you got to remember, there's like 8 members of the group, and they're each getting their own solo contracts. Like now they're all getting solo deals to do, like, I think Old Dirty Bastard, he did a song with Mariah Carey. Method Man, he got his feature with, I think it was Mary J. Blige. So they're all sort of growing apart. Yeah, they're all kind of growing apart and doing their own thing, going on to solo projects. But this week's episode, yesterday's episode, which was titled Liquid Swords, is a dramatization of the events that made, or dramatization of the creation of the Liquid Swords album, in which GZA was able to get a feature from each and every member of the Wu-Tang Clan. Each and every member of the Wu-Tang Clan, including Master Killer, who I realized was not an official member, and at least initially. He I guess he was technically featured on the song "The Mystery of Chess Boxing." It was Wu-Tang Clan featuring Master Killer. So he was able to get Master Killer, and all 8 members of the Wu-Tang Clan showed up on at least one of his songs. And yeah, overall, it was a great album. We all got to go listen to the Wu-Tang Clan, listen to the solo artists, because a lot of these solo albums are actually really, really, really great albums. A lot of great music out there. And this is history, really. I mean, this is like the history of hip hop. It's crazy that hip hop's really been around for like 50 years at this point. It's 50 years of hip hop. This is history. And let me know in the comments, do you guys agree or disagree? Or I guess question for everyone, what do you think was the golden age of hip hop? What was the golden era of hip hop? Are we living in it? Was it the bling era of the late 90s and early 2000s? Was it the SoundCloud era? Was it the late 80s and early 90s, the sort of Black consciousness movement? Like, what was the golden era? What was the golden age of hip hop? Let me know. Moving right along. Mandalorian. Whew. Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 4. The Foundling. Yeah, season 3, episode 4, The Foundling. We saw the return of Amir Best, is Amr. I'm the sorry, Ahmed Best as how do you pronounce this name? Kellerin Beck. Yes, Kellerin Beck. There's a scene where Grogu is getting his first like piece of Mandalorian armor, and there's a flashback sequence where we see Grogu, and it's his flashback to Order 66. Now, let's remember that Grogu is technically about 50 years old. Like he's the same age as Anakin Skywalker. One of the theories that I heard, and I'm not sure if this is official canon, was that Anakin Skywalker and Grogu were born in the same year, and both were separate attempts to bring balance to the Force. Of course, with Anakin, he was conceived by the midichlorians. He didn't have a father. He had his mother. There was no father. His father was technically the Force, I guess. And we all know how that ended up. Grogu was probably, let's see, Order 66, Anakin was 27. So Grogu was also 27 years old, though he didn't look it, because I guess Grogu's species ages super slower, much slower than we humans normally do. And we see a flashback to Order 66 in which Kellerin Beck, who I think is a character. Now, I'm not up to date on my like official Star Wars lore, so you guys in the comments below, let me know like what show or video game, like where is Kellerin Beck like from originally? Is he in the official canon? Do they bring him over from Legends? Who knows? Kellerin Beck, he found Grogu alone in an elevator during the attack and assured him everything would be all right before cutting down clone troopers with green and purple lightsabers and doing some fancy flying to escape pursuing ships. That is from EW.com. And yeah, that's pretty much what happened in the show. And we saw that he was able to get Grogu to safety following Order 66. And a lot of Jedis died during Order 66, and then we see a few of them after Order 66. A lot of them showed up in Rebels. Some did, some didn't. And I don't know, this episode, especially the whole like scene where they went and they at the end of last week's episode, they officially granted Bo-Katan a place in their sort of group of Mandalorians. The armorer, she said how like, did you bathe in the living waters? Have you removed your helmet since? Then you are by creed a Mandalorian. This is the way. You will have a home here. You can leave whenever you want, though, because remember, Bo-Katan doesn't really subscribe to those extremist methods of the Mandalorians, and she's taken her helmet off a bunch of times. So she's got to adapt to this new way of life. Although Din Djarin, he keeps his helmet on. We even see when she leads the hunting party to go and find one of the Mandalorians, who we later find out it's the Mandalorian son that's been abducted by this. I think they just called it a pterodactyl, which I feel like is kind of lazy writing. No shade to any director or any writers, okay? But I mean, come on, pterodactyl, really, guys? Anyway, during that sort of hunting party, they were going to strike at first light. She asked, "What do you do when you want to eat?" Or she asked Mando. She asked Din Djarin, "How do you eat around other people?" To which Mando responds, "You don't. When you have food, you have to go to a place that's isolated and nobody else is around, and then you take your helmet off. You take your helmet off and eat. but you got to make sure that nobody is there to see you. You have to really just go off in some like back alleyway. Honestly, now I'm not gonna go so far as to call like Mandalorians a cult or anything, but this whole like, oh, you can't show your face to anyone. This is the way kind of thing is like, I don't know. The scenes with Grogu were good. Definitely nice seeing Ahmed Best back, especially after his whole debacle with him being the mocap actor for Jar Jar Binks, and now me personally, I think that Phantom Menace was the least bad of the prequel trilogy, and this episode was kind of a prequel redemption, a bit of prequel redemption. You know, we got to see more of Order 66. We got to see we were introduced to Kelleran Beck, and yeah, so a bit of not fan service, but like prequel redemption. And I guess the same thing could be said for Star Wars: The Clone Wars as an entire series, prequel redemption. It's like, okay, it takes place between episodes 2 and 3. By the way, Star Wars: The Clone Wars is a phenomenal series that I will one day force myself to sit through each and every episode. Um, one of these days, I promise, guys. And yeah, I think fans were just really, really mean towards Ahmed Best in their distaste for Jar Jar Binks. Now, me personally, I think there's a separation between the actor and the character that they're portraying. And I think maybe fans might have been a little too harsh to Ahmed Best, who is a very talented individual, very talented actor. Much love to Ahmed Best. That being said, I wasn't too crazy about Jar Jar Binks, but there's a line, guys. Be respectful out there. And like in the world and in the comics, don't come for anybody's life, sort of thing. Overall, I mean, this episode was a 10 out of 10. And Star Wars, the last like, I don't want to say 10 years, maybe just like the last 5 or 6 years has just been really just kind of shaky. I know like the Star Wars fandom, which I am a part of, although I haven't talked a whole lot about Star Wars on my podcast. You guys should definitely, if you haven't already, check out Stark Wars podcast. He probably goes more in depth in yesterday's episode of The Mandalorian. This week's episode, I should say. He's got like a whole podcast devoted to Star Wars, but make no mistake, I am a Star Wars fan. Empire Strikes Back will always be the best Star Wars movie, will always be the best Star Wars film, in my opinion. I think the prequels, I mean, I don't know. There are some good parts in The Phantom Menace. Attack of the Clones, I really just cannot sit and watch. You'd have to strap me down and like force my eyeballs to view Attack of the Clones. Revenge of the Sith, the third act of Revenge of the Sith was redeeming, I guess. The sequel trilogy, I don't know. I think I was actually thinking about this earlier. I guess we have to realize as a fandom that J.J. Abrams is not George Lucas. Even Kathleen Kennedy, president of Lucasfilm, she is not George Lucas, and that the franchise is under new management. They're under the Walt Disney umbrella, and they've been under the Walt Disney umbrella for almost 11 years. I think George Lucas signed over the company in 2012. I think October of 2012. So I think so. Yeah, the sequel trilogy, I don't know, kind of fell flat. It didn't follow like that same format that we got from the original trilogy or from the prequels. So there's some good parts of episode 8. I think episode 7 was a solid foundation, and then it just kind of fell apart around The Last Jedi, which I like The Last Jedi for its theme of failure. Its theme of failure that definitely impacted me in my life. Me hearing that failure is the greatest teacher in life and that you learn more from your failures than you do your successes. That really resonated with me. That being said, as a movie, it's not really a late night movie go-to for me. And with The Rise of Skywalker, it's the last movie I saw before the pandemic. I saw it January 2020. The world shut down 2 months later. I haven't rewatched it since. And from what I remember, I mean, I'd have to actually sit and rewatch it again. I kind of enjoyed seeing The Rise of Skywalker in theaters. I liked Solo, although Solo was kind of an unnecessary movie. It's more like they had to justify its existence. It's like, okay, the Kessel Run and how Han met Chewie, and it felt like it was it was like just doing the most to justify its existence. Um, and a lot of times you can tell when a movie is like doing a lot to justify its existence. And it's no disrespect to any actor, any director. Ron Howard, he's made a lot of great movies. I'm a fan of his work, even going all the way back to Happy Days. And so, but one thing I can say for sure is that this week's episode of The Mandalorian was a win. All right. The Star Wars fandom has been kind of divided. I think maybe even just going back to 2017, just going back to The Last Jedi, it's really divided fans. Some enjoy the new movies, some don't. Some enjoy the new content, the new shows, some do not. Some of us, like myself, enjoyed the Book of Boba Fett. A lot of Star Wars fans did not. But I think one thing that all of us can agree on is The Mandalorian Chapter 20, The Foundling, Season 3, Episode 4, was a win for us all. That's all I'm gonna really say about that, because you guys know. I mean, if this is the Cobbs Corner podcast, the most important news, okay, current nerd news, the most important news is the Marvel and DC news. All right, so Shazam: Fury of the Gods. Now, this episode of Cobbs Corner will air on Cobbs, will be available everywhere tomorrow, Friday, March 24th at 10 a.m. It will be available everywhere, including YouTube. And at the same time, my spoiler-filled review of Shazam: Fury of the Gods that I did with Lee from Lights Camera Rant, that episode will be available everywhere starting Friday. Friday, March 24th. 2023 at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this episode and that episode will air simultaneously. So if you care about spoilers, if you actually want to see Shazam: Fury of the Gods, I'm gonna kind of give like my spoiler-free / mild spoiler review now. But if you don't want to know anything about it at all, then click away from this video. If you really want to see the movie for yourself and you don't want to hear any spoilers at all, then do not listen to episode 38, I think it is, of Cobbs Corner, where I go over, where Lee and I really go in depth and spoilers in that episode. That being said, let's get on with it. So Shazam: Fury of the Gods. I give this movie about a 6.5 out of 10. I think that the connection from the first Shazam to Shazam 2 was kind of like minuscule. Like it was like one minor detail from the first film that a lot of us kind of just forgot about. Like all of a sudden, that's like the big plot point of the second film. And no disrespect to Lucy Liu or Helen Mirren, but I feel like the post-credit scene of Shazam, the first one, Shazam: Fury of the Gods did not deliver on its promise. Didn't deliver on the promise of seeing the the villain from the first movie, seeing him come back. We see him in that prison cell, and we see this telepathic caterpillar whose name I cannot remember at the moment. Shazam 2, I've heard that the plan was originally for them to go that route for Shazam 2, but supposedly those plans have been kicked down the road for a future, I don't know, Shazam 3, or later on in this episode, I'm going to get into the state of the MCU and the state of the DCU. That'll be our closer for tonight. But I think Shazam Fury of the Gods on its own is a fun movie. And I said the same thing about the first Shazam, that it was a fun movie. It was kind of like a parody film. It's like kind of like Spider-Man Homecoming. It's like, what's it like being a teenager growing up in a world filled with gods, filled with superheroes, and all of the trials of the superhero, like power testing and like the trials and stuff like that. Now with Shazam Fury of the Gods, it's like now everybody's got superpowers. Everybody can save the world. I definitely, I guess I like kind of the team dynamics and sort of seeing Billy Batson, between Billy Batson as Billy Batson and then Billy Batson as Shazam, and like each of the characters, each of his foster siblings as their normal selves versus as the superhero selves. The banter was really, really fun. Loved seeing Lucy Liu and Helen Mirren as the antagonists. I always get a kick out of actors who typically will play one kind of role and then they do the opposite. Like they usually play the antagonist and then they'll play the protagonist. Usually play the protagonist and then maybe try playing the antagonist. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, sidebar. I don't know if you guys remember the movie Dark Tower from 2017, which I'm not even familiar with the source material, and I can tell that that movie was awful. Seeing Matthew McConaughey as the villain, that just did not work at all. Matthew McConaughey is usually the protagonist in a lot of the movies that he's in. He usually doesn't play the villain, so seeing him play the villain just didn't work out. But Lucy Liu, I know her from Charlie's Angels, from Kill Bill Volume 1, where I guess she was technically the villain in that movie. Oren Ishii, she was technically one of the main antagonists in that movie, but then she's also played protagonists. Lucy Liu and Helen Mirren, phenomenal, as well as just looking at the cast right here. Let's see. Rachel Zegler as Anthea. Rachel Zegler as Anthea. The acting in this movie was phenomenal. All right, the acting was good. The acting was on point. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's phenomenal. I retract that statement. It wasn't phenomenal. It was okay. I think this movie overall was good for what it was. They really went in a different direction from the comics. They go into Greek mythology, and I'm not going to get too caught up in that because I don't want to get into spoiler territory. But they do get into Greek mythology, the daughters of Atlas. Atlas, who is one of the Greek gods in Shazam's acronym. I think it's like the Wisdom of Solomon. I know it's like Solomon, Hercules. I want to say Ares, Zeus, Atlas, and Mercury. Mercury, who is technically a Roman deity, he's the Roman god of speed, the Roman equivalent to Hermes. Hermes, son of Zeus, god of speed. So they got to go further into the rabbit hole of Greek mythology and the daughters of Atlas, who are not in the comics. So they got to take it a different direction outside of the comics, and yeah. So I know I keep saying yeah, but Shazam Fury of the Gods. This film definitely suffered from all of the changes happening behind the scenes at Warner Bros. And it has had like, I think I saw a news story. It has had like the lowest box office like opening weekend out of any other like pre or post COVID um, DCU DCU film. I want to say it was just post COVID. So I guess post COVID. So that would be let's see, maybe like 2022. So really, they probably only compared it to Black Adam because Black Adam was just in theaters initially. It was just in theaters. Like right now, as of the recording of this episode, Shazam: Fury of the Gods is only in theaters. It is not available on stream at all. Because if you remember, at least here in the United States, for the entire year of 2021, well, 2021 we technically got two DC films. There was Zack Snyder's Justice League, which was exclusively on HBO Max, and then The Suicide Squad, which I loved, on HBO Max for 30 days and in theaters. So this movie, I mean, if you want to watch a fun superhero movie where like pretty much nothing really matters or not nothing really matters, but like where you're not really like thinking too heavily on like the plot and where it's going and like world building, because I guess the overall goal of like the DCU establish universe and then grow and expand. I mean, that's the goal of the MCU as well, to continue to expand, to continue to tell new stories. But this was just a fun superhero movie. I Yeah, and I kind of put it in the same category as the first Shazam because I don't consider the first Shazam to be an A-list movie either. I consider like Shazam's 1 and 2, they're both like B tier films for me. It's like I didn't see the first Shazam in theaters. Shazam 2, um, my official answer is yes, see it in theaters. Asterisk next to that statement, because if you're the kind of person who is looking for like actual like in-depth like storytelling and like Oscar winning performances, whew, man, definitely do not see this movie in theaters. Definitely wait for it on HBO Max. But I recommend that, yes, you should see it in theaters. And I would love to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about what you guys thought of Shazam: Fury of the Gods? Again, my in-depth spoiler-filled review will be available to listen to everywhere starting Friday, March 24th at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, and well, I know I mean, it's only been less than a half an hour. I've been kind of run out of things to talk about. But the state of the MCU and the DCU, we'll see if I can waste the next 31 minutes of your life and talk about the state of the MCU and DCU. And here we go. So, starting with the MCU, shout out to Two Black Nerds. Two Black Nerds had a post on Instagram that said that, and I'm just looking at it now. Well, I guess like recent updates in Marvel news. Yeah, shout out to Two Black Nerds podcast. Definitely go listen to them. I can't wait to be on one of your episodes. So, I mean, first off, the latest round of news. All right. Longtime Marvel Studios executive Victoria Alonso departs the company after 17 years. So, looks like both Marvel Studios and Warner Bros. Studios are going through some changes in leadership. We're gonna see where this goes. Will it benefit Marvel Studios? Will it not benefit Marvel Studios? Who knows? Um, but yeah, I guess. I also believe that like life is too short to just do one thing. I think if you have the opportunity to go and have a second act, have a second career in another field, then great. You know, but sad to see Victoria Alonso go. She's worked on a lot of great projects. We'll see what kind of effect this has on the MCU going forward. And we are in phase 5 now. So Ryan Coogler is rumored to be developing an animated Wakanda series for Disney Plus. Now, I did see a petition. I can't remember if it was on Screen Rant or if I was just browsing the internet. I saw some petition for a Bashanga series. Now, Bashanga was the very first Black Panther, and he was mentioned in the opening of the movie Black Panther. How Bashanga was the warrior shaman. I don't know if they actually say his name or not, but at least in the comics, Bashanga is the very first Black Panther. He finds a heart-shaped herb, and becomes the first Black Panther. So yeah, I could totally see Marvel Studios doing a limited series on Bashanga, maybe ahead of Thunderbolts. Because again, my theory for Thunderbolts is that either the United States government is going to declare war on Wakanda, or they're going to invade Wakanda, or the Thunderbolts are going to be sent on some mission to Wakanda. And I think it'd be really nice if they maybe set that up in Thunderbolts and then went into Captain America New World Order, where we have Sam Wilson is Captain America now. Yeah, Sam Wilson as Captain America, a Black man as Captain America, the United States invading a technologically advanced nation in Africa. All right. It'd be a really, really great dichotomy. And I think that the gateway to that would be a mini series or a limited series on Disney Plus, where they explored the origins of Wakanda, where they dove deeper into the lore of the Black Panther and the history of the Black Panther and Bashanga. Because Black Panther Wakanda Forever was really left open ended, because we found out that T'Challa had a son in secret who was raised in. He had a son who was raised in Wakanda. No, Haiti. Haiti. Can't believe I just said that. He had a son, Toussaint, who was raised in Haiti, away from Wakanda. So maybe when he comes of age, he'll challenge for the throne. While at the same time, Shuri had no interest in leading as queen. After the passing of her brother and her mother in the same film, she was, I guess, Black Panther pro tempore, but the fact that she didn't even show up to the challenge ceremony shows you that she had no interest in leading the nation of Wakanda into the future. She had no interest in formally ascending to the throne. So we don't actually see the challenge ceremony, but we saw the plane, we saw the ship at Warrior Falls, and then M'Baku walks off the ship. He says, "The Black Panther sends her regards. I, M'Baku, son of Wakanda, challenge for the throne." So maybe we'll see. Maybe M'Baku will be the next king of Wakanda. Maybe he'll be the next Black Panther. Who knows? I really think there's a lot that they can do with this Wakanda series, if it is in fact happening. Because again, these are just rumors, speculation. All right. So yeah. Next bit of news: a Mephisto Disney Plus special starring Sacha Baron Cohen is rumored to be in development. Now, Sacha Baron Cohen, I'm a fan of his work. I won't say I'm a huge fan of his work because I've only really seen him, and I know he did The Dictator. The Dictator's hilarious. I know he did Borat, and then there was another mockumentary Borat. There was like a sequel, like maybe 2 years ago. So Sacha Baron Cohen, very funny individual, very talented individual. I want to say he was the voice of King Julian in the Madagascar franchise. If anyone from DreamWorks listening, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But huge fan of this guy. Him as Mephisto. Oh man, he would kill it as Mephisto. All right. But yeah, a Disney Plus special on Mephisto, who we haven't seen in the MCU. He's Marvel Comics version of Satan, and we haven't seen him yet. We have not seen him yet. Shout out to Eric Voss and New Rockstars. I know Eric Voss, you have multiple times tried to point out Mephisto, from going all the way back to WandaVision to the Loki series. Eric Voss, you've done an amazing job with your breakdowns, and none of your theories about Mephisto have officially been confirmed, but Mephisto series, maybe they'll retcon him into the MCU. Who knows? Maybe they'll say like, oh, he was always there, and like, oh, that actually was a painting of Mephisto in the church and Loki and da da da. But so yeah. Daredevil Born Again set photo may indicate that the series is set during the blip. My whole thing about the blip is that now, I mean, Daredevil Born Again, I'm still in the process of watching / rewatching all the seasons of Daredevil, of the entire Defender saga. Again, my prediction, some of it is going to be accepted into the official MCU canon, some of it will not be. We know Daredevil Born Again, we know that Jon Bernthal is coming back as the Punisher. We know that, what is her name? The actress who plays Jessica Jones, Kristen Ritter. Kristen Ritter is coming back to reprise her role as Jessica Jones in Daredevil Born Again. Vincent D'Onofrio as Wilson Fisk. So definitely excited for the show. Being set during the blip. Now, you see, we're in phase 5 of the MCU, and I'd always said how, especially post Endgame and going into phase 4, I think phase 4 was kind of the transition phase out of the Infinity Saga into the Multiverse Saga, and that we don't really get a real window into what was life like during that 5-year gap between Infinity War and Endgame. As much as I think that it'd be interesting to see that, I feel like the MCU is moving forward. It's just moving on past Thanos and past the blip. That's all like history at this point. So not saying that it can't happen. Not saying that they can't put the show in, chronologically during the blip, but I'm just wondering like how much, I'm just wondering like how relevant is this show going to be if they choose to go that route? Because we're really just moving on. Rewrites on the upcoming Blade movie may have cut out Kit Harington's Black Knight. Now, I'm going to tell you guys straight up, I did not like Eternals. I didn't. Every time that I've watched it probably like 3 times now. I almost kind of fell asleep when I saw it in theaters, and I saw it opening night. Man, that movie, I really just couldn't get into it. It was way too many heroes in that movie. A lot of them just didn't need to be there. Kit Harington as Black Knight, Kit Harington, good actor. He had a lot of talent in that movie, perhaps too much talent, if you ask me. And Kit Harington as the Black Knight. The Black Knight, he's a character from the comics. We got the voice cameo from Mahershala Ali as Blade, and there's been a lot of like recent like developments in the Blade film and how it didn't have an official director and how there's been some rewrites and some changing around of the script. So we'll see if this Blade movie even sticks the landing. Because if we have learned anything from Blade Trinity, it is that movies where there's shenanigans going on behind the scenes, co-stars can't get along, studio politics, the movie comes out bad. So I'm hoping that we can. I'm actually hopeful. Like I actually want to see Mahershala Ali as Blade in the MCU. I think he's going to do a phenomenal job. Wesley Snipes himself has given Mahershala Ali his blessing. As for Kit Harington, I think maybe if they just went the route of giving Blade his own solo film / origin story, maybe focusing on, and then maybe if they do a Midnight Suns movie going forward, which I'd also like to see Midnight Suns potentially, then maybe bringing Kit Harington into that later on, as Black Knight. So, and they can only really go so far because Carnage is a Sony property. So yeah. Silver Surfer Disney Plus project is rumored to premiere before 2025's Fantastic Four. I'm still cautiously optimistic about the MCU's Fantastic Four, just given the track record of this franchise. I mean, this franchise's track record. I mean, there was on YouTube, you can find the 1990s Fantastic Four film that never made it to theaters, and it's just really low budget and cheesy, but everybody was kind of having fun. It was the 90s. Then there's the 2000s Fantastic Four movies that I grew up with. There were two of them. Now, the one from 2005, as a kid, that was my favorite movie when I was like 5 years old. That movie came out. I was 4 when the first one came out. All right. Chris Evans, and everyone else, whose names I am not going to run through because we are kind of short on time. It was okay. I mean, it worked for that time period. Rise of Silver Surfer, I have only seen beginning to end once. I think I saw it in theaters in 2007. I was 6. So I'd have to rewatch those movies as an adult. Four Stick was just awful. I mean, the third act fell flat. They really rushed through things. The pacing was all over the place. So, yeah, and I feel like Michael B. Jordan was kind of just like plopped in there. He wasn't even like big. He wasn't even that big of a star back then yet. So, but Silver Surfer, he's a really interesting character. If they're going to bring in Galactus, they got to do it right. Galactus cannot be this black hole. Okay. You got to actually like bring in Galactus. If you're going to bring in Galactus, bring in Galactus. All right. But Silver Surfer series, it's a possibility. Like it's actually a possibility. I mean, maybe we will have a Silver Surfer series ahead of Fantastic Four. Maybe it'll be a nice lead in, but we'll see. And I guess last stuff, many of Marvel's upcoming Disney Plus series are now simply listed as coming soon. Look, guys, I mean, release dates, they change all the time. There's rewrites, there's, and yeah, I mean, these shows, they go into rewrites. They're put on pause. They, reshoots is what I meant to say. Yeah, rewrites, reshoots for a multitude of reasons that are beyond any of the fans' controls. A lot of shows are listed as coming soon. So we're gonna have to wait and see if we actually will get Secret Wars this year. We got Secret Wars, we got Loki season 2, What If season 2, Agatha Coven of Chaos. So Marvel has an exciting future. They've got a really exciting future. All right, but we're gonna have to wait and see. Last piece of Marvel news: the upcoming Thunderbolts movie is expected to begin principal photography on June 12th. Again, Thunderbolts, I'm really looking forward to this movie. I'm really looking forward to the potential of a possible Thunderbolts versus the Wakandans and Talokan. All right. Maybe I'm just looking forward to that big grand spectacle. Also, Harrison Ford, for him to be acting in his 80s, I mean, rest in peace to William Hurt. but Harrison Ford is going to knock it out of the park as Secretary Ross. I'm not sure if I can't remember which film he's confirmed for, but I know he's going to be Secretary Ross, and I think Thunderbolts and Captain America: New World Order. One of those films he's confirmed for. The other, it was just speculated, but we'll see. Harrison Ford is going to do phenomenal. Florence Pugh, um, Wyatt Russell, Sebastian Stan, some new faces, some old faces. Really, really looking forward to this movie and seeing where they go with this sort of MCU or Marvel's answer to the Suicide Squad, kind of, with Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine as kind of like the Amanda Waller of this universe. So I'm looking forward to it, and it looks like June 12th they're going to begin either production or principal photography. So that's all the news on the Marvel front. On the DC front, the director of Shazam had put out some sort of statement. Shazam: Fury of the Gods director David F. Sandberg, he put out some sort of statement saying how he knew that, like, halfway through production, like, he knew that Shazam: Fury of the Gods was going to flop, but he said, I'm gonna continue this because I'm getting paid anyway. So DC, Warner Bros, they've got potential. All right. They got a lot of potential going forward. It's crazy what's crazy is that the DCEU has been around for 10 years. All right. Man of Steel came out 10 years ago. Came out, I want to say June of 2013. Don't quote me on that. I was actually rewatching. I was rewatching Man of Steel just last week, and it's okay, I guess. I mean, the DCEU, it had a shaky start. Batman v Superman, 2016 was probably the worst year for the DCEU. Batman v Superman is, in my opinion, the worst DCEU film ever. Suicide Squad, I don't know if I could actually sit through that movie. There's just so many things wrong with Suicide Squad. If anything, it's iconically bad. But 2017, Wonder Woman, phenomenal. Minus the third act. My third act fell kind of flat. The Justice League, no. Aquaman was okay. Aquaman, I consider like Aquaman and Shazam kind of on the same playing field. They're both like solid B, maybe even C tier films. They're fun movies that worked. And I just think that going forward, I hope that there's more connected storytelling. And maybe if what they did was they kind of followed the method that Marvel used, where they establish each character in their own separate film, expand the mythology of the DCU, and then bring it all together. So this DCU reset going forward, I think that you need to be able to establish these characters and actually have like compelling characters with compelling themes that us, the fans, can actually get invested in these characters and invested in these themes, not just the heroes, but also the villains. And that's what makes for Marvel's got some really iconic villains, because a lot of Marvel's villains have justifiable motives. A lot of the villains you almost feel sympathy for. It's like, especially Killmonger, Thanos, and Baron Zemo. It's like, you can't help but look at things from their perspective. You can't help but see where's the gray area in there. So I think that's why Marvel has historically, all right, been one step ahead of the DCEU. The DCEU has been kind of playing catch up in terms of films. In terms of films, Marvel historically, the MCU has been ahead of the DCEU. Now, do I think that the DCEU is going to be ahead of the MCU? going forward. I guess according to the box office score, according to the box office numbers, not so much. Uh, one thing that I will say about the upcoming The Flash movie, which I did not draft in Fantasy Movie League, because at the time I had really only considered Shazam: Fury of the Gods to be the most. That's the one DC film that I was most confident in, and going into 2023, that was the only movie that we had actually gotten a trailer for. So, one thing I will say about The Flash is if this is the beginning of the DCU reset, they've got Zod is coming back. They're bringing back Zod. They're bringing back two Batmans, Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck. So I think they're playing on the nostalgia factor. The nostalgia factor. So I really think that The Flash is. I don't think it's going to knock it out of the park, and maybe that's due to the outside Ezra Miller controversy, who Warner Bros. May or may not be working with them ever again. Personally, I don't think that I do not think that Warner Bros. Is going to be working with them ever again after The Flash. I may or may not see it in theaters, but I think going forward with the DCU, they just have to establish the characters in their own solo films, give them one, maybe even two, and then connect the dots slowly. All right, the MCU. Okay, the first phase of the MCU was built up over the course of 6 films. Each film was its own solo film. The first 5 films are their own solo films, with like small bits of connection. Like the first Iron Man movie is Iron Man's origin story, and then there's the post-credit scene where we see Nick Fury and we hear about the Avengers. Incredible Hulk, its own separate film. Post-credit scene, which was actually before the credits, we see Tony Stark. So you're starting to see the connection. He says, "Oh, we're putting a team together." Iron Man 2. Sequel to the first Iron Man, you get more character development for the character of Iron Man, and we get more screen time from Nick Fury. The movie occurs during Nick Fury's big week, and we're introduced to Natasha Romanoff. Who we later find out had the alias of Black Widow. We didn't know that. They hadn't officially referred to her as the Black Widow yet. So we introduced to Natasha Romanoff, and they further fleshed out the Avengers Initiative and SHIELD as a covert intelligence organization. 2011 Thor took us to the cosmos, further expanding the mythology of the universe. Well, getting into Norse mythology, but it's expanding the Marvel Cinematic Universe to the stars and the 9 realms and Asgard, and how Thor from Norse mythology, in Asgard, which makes him technically an alien. I mean, Thor is an alien. Thor and the Asgardians are aliens, kind of like how the Kryptonians in the DC universe are aliens. It's like they look like humans, they talk like humans, but from an anatomical and physiological standpoint, they are not humans. So that's why I say technically aliens. They're aliens, but not in like the typical sense. So expanding the universe, introducing us to the Tesseract, and then we got Captain America, the First Avenger, which is a 1940s period piece origin story for the first Avenger, Captain America, Steve Rogers. And then we get the Avengers. And each film has its own style, has its own flavor, has its own group of characters. So DC, you got to diversify. The problem like off rip at the beginning was maybe having Christopher Nolan as a producer on Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, and going too dark. Christopher Nolan, again, he's a great director. All right, I am for sure seeing Oppenheimer later on this year in theaters. I know Lee said it was going to be like the film of the year. We'll see. And Christopher Nolan, he's a great director and everything, but he shouldn't have been on Man of Steel. They went way, way, way too dark. They really tried to ride the momentum of the Dark Knight trilogy. Phenomenal trilogy, all right, but that tone did not work for a character like Superman. Um, so I think early on you went a little too dark, and so I think James Gunn, you got to be willing to give more directorial freedom and don't be afraid to experiment and dabble in different genres. It's like I've said a million times before on this podcast, superhero films are not a genre unto themselves. All right, you got in the MCU, you got heist films like Ant-Man, you got space operas like Guardians of the Galaxy, you got, action films like Iron Man, or war dramas. Like, I guess you could say it's a war drama. Um, Captain America: The First Avenger, a 1940s period piece. So, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, a political thriller. So yeah, you got some different, like, you dabble in some different subgenres to make a great film, to make a great cohesive superhero universe. So that's my advice going forward for DC. All right, and let the record show I am a huge fan of both the MCU and the DCU. All right, and Star Wars as well. I love all three of these franchises unconditionally. All right, and I have faith going forward, but the old ways didn't work. As Tupac Shakur said, you gotta be willing to make changes. That's the way it is. Things will never be the same. And with that, that is a wrap on current nerd news. Thank you guys for tuning in to CNN this Thursday night. To those of you who watched us live on Twitch, and going forward, we will be on Twitch every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Mark your calendars. They're Thursday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The next day on all your favorite listening platforms, including YouTube, at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time the next day. So Fridays, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you like this sort of content, then like it and share it with someone like it and share it with someone else who you think might also enjoy it. Tell a friend to tell a friend. It really helps our family grow. Cobbs Corner family. I consider you listeners. I consider you guys my family. Help us have the biggest family in podcasting. All right, the biggest family on the internet, even. All right, so like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Instagram at future_mechanical_engineer. Follow Cobbs Corner on Instagram at Cobbs_corner_podcast. Follow Cobbs Corner on TikTok before they take away our TikTok privileges here in the USA, at Cobbs Corner Podcast, all lowercase, no spaces. Turn on your post notifications because I drop a new episode every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you don't want to miss out. I hope you guys enjoyed your stay here at Cobbs Corner, and as always, I will talk to all of you in the next episode. Peace.